This is
Welcome
what live's
back,
about.
YouTube. Yeah. So how this came to be is there's a really interesting combination now that we read about what makes businesses last and a resilient business model that lasts generations, hence the third here. And we have other third. This is number 11. But really, not for me. No, this is number 2 for me. But there's number 11 of grandkids. And so really what brought us to this was thinking about the long haul. And my parents my mom into nutrition, came out of college with a degree in dietetics, went into the hospital system and struggled with how reactionary and it was, and how little thought there was into lifestyle ahead of how they got here. You know, you just amputated a gentleman's leg to type 2 diabetes, but she's like, I could have helped him 10 years ago and he could be running marathons, you know.
Yeah.
So that was something that she really was able to solidify her passion. Prior to meeting my dad, my mom, that was my mom's story. My dad was pursuing weightlifting and found a passion for weightlifting drug-free in a very heavy drug season of powerlifting.
Yeah, it was like at its peak.
Yeah, late 70s, early 80s,
Yeah.
mid 80s. He was one of the founders of American Drug-Free Powerlifting Association. And with discipline and diet, he felt that there was not a pill that you couldn't beat. It absolutely took discipline and diet, and dieted discipline. So it's all a balance. You got to have rest, you got to recover, you got to eat well, you got to fuel your body. And my father was able to achieve his goals rather quickly. He only competed hard for about 3 or 4 years, and found that his passion was the gym and in the journey, and what I would say is like the production of success and the process, the daily grind. And so, well, in that process, right, my parents meet. And my mom's desire and interest for nutrition is what really helped my dad get over the hump. And then my mom continued to help a bunch of athletes actually get over the hump and get into the pros or stay in the pros or get to the Olympic trials, all on discipline and nutrition. And one thing that my mom wished she had was really, really, really healthy, guilt-free, 100% nutritious, with absolutely no preservatives, no negatives to it, in a protein, a red meat. She had to diet plan with chicken, broccoli, protein in a can, read labels with 35 ingredients. Like, she had to just screen labels all the time.
Just not real food.
And so when this whole thing, how we backed into this was my parents had us 4 kids. My littlest sister was literally a baby. And they started to feel a bit of a conviction of, are our kids going to have the work ethic that we are finding makes the difference? The willingness to really live with passion and fortitude that they didn't always see in the gym. It wasn't always just talent. It was truly a purposeful lifestyle.
Yeah. And the processes you mentioned too.
Yeah. And so they sat together and said, you know what, if we train athletes but miss out on our kids, we've missed out. And so Sean and I are very fortunate that was something they realized. And so they bought a hobby farm that was a former horse farm, and didn't know if they were going to have horses or cows or bison. And anyway, just jump ahead, found out bison were able to be owned privately in early 90s. So my dad pursued that pretty hard. And my mom said, Leroy, she said, it goes by Lee. He says, Lee, if you can keep all the grain out of your animals, I will do my absolute best to sell the meat from all your calves, which would be about 30 a year. So he was like, perfect. That's what I want to do, is focus on production. And my dad started to learn about grass, soil, grazing. How do you have a fully finished, nutritious animal without grain? Didn't know how to do that, but set out to do it. And my mom has a habit of overselling. So 29 years later, my mom created a really great balance of more demand than supply. But all the while, what really became a principle throughout was we never let demand dictate how we did it. We always let quality and integrity drive the quantity. We were willing to leave orders open if we needed to. There was such a time in our business, 20 plus years, that we were extremely supply limited. It's only in the last 5 years that we've actually started to see like-minded people in the industry come to us and say, I've been skeptical for years, but you guys have proven that this can be done.
Right.
And we want a part of it. So we, as the second generation, are fortunate to be able to find out where this could go with the same ethics, the same principles, without being so bridled by lack of supply.
Right.
So,
and I want to be a part of this too. It's not that, just for what you guys produce, but it's like I want to be a part of your process and your mindset and the hard work. And that's what's really important too, is like in such a instant world today, and we talked about this too at length, like what didn't we talk about at length? But just in such an instant world, it's like it is a process. So even whether you are working out, you're not just going to have a 45-minute session and then be Arnold Schwarzenegger the next day. It just doesn't happen. You're not just going to eat liver and then be like, okay with that. You have to lean into and support the process of all of it. And these guys have been doing it for so long and will continue to do this. And so I think that is one of the major things why, I'm really passionate with this farm in particular, is just like embracing the process and knowing the value of hard work and not cutting corners, because there are so many farms out there that just that cut corners. And when things are dangled in your face, you want to trust that we're not going to break, right? And so I think that is just like a really valuable point, and something that was obviously started from your parents and now to you guys, and then now to our 11 right nieces and nephews.
Something too, like I guess what's coming to my mind too is Lindsay's talking about this integrity aspect. We're very open and very bold about what we share and our standards, and our claims basically on the raising and processing side, all the way to the end consumer. And we don't have every one of our employees obviously knows all these standards too. Like I said, we're very vocal about this kind of stuff. And so
I met them all the other day.
There's not a guilty conscience in the building. If that makes sense. So everyone is seeing the process through and doing the work, and can look at those standards and say, yep, that's true, right. All the way down the list. And so that's a tall order. That's a scary place to put yourself, because it's, like I said, it's a high bar of expectation. But we wouldn't have it any other way. We wouldn't want it any other way, because we can't be all eyes everywhere all the time.
Right.
And we're not policemen. We're just trying to find like-minded people that desire and have passion for this kind of stuff too, and help us be better.
Right.
We can individually, or we're good and we come together and we're great. So.
And I love it. I love the behind the scenes story, and again, like we could probably host this live for forever and ever and talking deep, but I want to see what do we have here on the farm. Obviously we are farming bison, and so they have
got some curious bulls behind us.
Curious bulls that keep getting a little bit closer, but of course we have bison here on the farm, and on your website we have a bunch of other different varieties of meat as well too, or game, and the other important thing about not only do you do that here on the farm with the bison too, but you also hold up these standards to all of the other farmers too that you work with, which is super important too, right? They're constantly, checking in on those farms and just making sure that, they're holding them accountable too. And so again, those are the people that I want to support. So while we start talking about what we actually have behind us and the bison, and even Anna too, would love for you to touch base on Anna. But I will start looking to see if you guys have any questions, because this is where the fun stuff starts to happen. The interaction. And so I'll let you take the role of talking about what we have here.
So the group of animals we have behind us here is a class of 2.5-year-old bison bulls. Specifically stating bulls. We do not steer or castrate our bison. We leave them completely as they were born. and they are in the process of regenerating an old dairy farm right now. We've not been on this location as long as others. This one we've only been under the care of for about 7 years, and was about 80% of this landscape was conventionally row cropped for 2 generations. And then the 3rd generation was no longer interested, so I was happening to be in the right place at the right time and was able to get the attention of the landowner to maybe have us be the next generation. So this land is now entirely grass and kind of rebuilding all the soil structure back from all the years of tillage. These guys are the magic makers right here. We're really just here to take care of them and be stewards, but these guys, these grazers, and the way they interact with the land, you can't duplicate with machine, you can't duplicate with tools, gimmicks. There is magic in the way a grazer was meant to impact the land and the way the land responds to that. And so, but it is a process of length. It is not something that we can accelerate results, and we choose not to accelerate results. Accelerants can be finances, or different elements of using some mechanics or tools to get it past the ugly stage. There's kind of this ugly stage of taking something so abused, but it's the process of detoxifying the land, metabolizing the sprays, going through the successions of grass. So what you're seeing right here actually is a little bit of a little bit of a wild stand. So we actually have some bale grazing behind us here. And which is one of the ways that we've been trying to bring nutrients in the land. So it's also a little shorter so you guys can see them. This truly is a labor of love. And so one thing that Sean mentioned about our staff or employees, because people say, how do you know that this is being done internally? There's a lot of employees that are a part of this. This was only a family operation, but there's been 20 years of employment to be able to carry this mission forward, and realizing we do have limits.
Yeah.
So slowly but surely, we're always understaffed. We're always short of people interested in what we're doing and want to be a part of that. But we're going to hold that to be unshaken.
Yeah.
So similar to the supply chain, right? So we have multiple suppliers of multiple species. We feel that really good land stewards are overlooking land in a way that they are on the land every day. We can't be everywhere every day. So we have chosen that to really have the best supply chain and impact the most is that we would find a point of contentment and balance with our own time and skills, and then start to find like-minded people. So back to the who, just like you looking for the who for leading and steering people towards health and wellness. We're looking for the who in the world of farming and ranching, and really what they have to offer is not the first question. I don't care if you have 2 or 2,000.
Right.
It's who you are and why you're doing it.
Exactly.
And once we find that, the relationship really synergizes. And a lot of our relationships are 10, 15 years running. And they used to only sell us one species. Well, now they're selling us 2 and 3, and they're creating a polyculture. So,
and this is green flags too as a consumer as well. You know, sometimes you have a lot of different red flags from different farms, or different marketing labels on your beef, but these are all green flags. It's like who they are, what their relationships are as well with their other farms too. And so so not only that, we did have some questions too. First of all, there was a couple of people who were like, I love your farm. This is the only farm I buy from, which, yeah, I mean, once you find farmers who have, this integrity and this value, of course, like you're going to have customers for life. And so that's really important. Another question was, is there a difference between beef suet and bison suet? Perhaps maybe you want to,
Sure, I can take that. I'll jump to that question here in 20 seconds. I just wanted to say too, a lot of the focus that Marielle and I have been a part of is recognizing that all of this is much bigger than us, as it relates to employees, as it relates to supply relationships, as it relates to customers, as it relates to, awesome folks like Lindsay. We want NorthStar to be a brand that represents what we're all passionate about, not a last name, if that makes sense. So we're trying to build NorthStar Bison as the brand that is a legacy that lives way beyond any one of our lifetimes or our ideas. That we're welcoming in suppliers that have better ideas than we do, that are more professional in their sphere of influence than we are, whether that's scientists, whether that's doctors, whether that's professional ranchers that are, PhD level biologists essentially in land and animal stewardship. So, and whether that's all the way down to the consumer aspect, that's where we start, right? So we're trying, our goal right out the gate is how do we create the most nourishing foods on the planet, and then we start answering those questions from there and build our what do you want to say, our standards around that to support that. So that was just a little bit of a rant to kind of add thoughts to what Marielle was saying. But to go back to the question about beef and bison suet, bison is significantly more nutrient dense than beef. And there are a few reasons for that. Bison grow a lot slower. So I use like a tree analogy. There's trees that grow really, really fast. Their wood is soft. There's trees that grow really, really slow. Their wood is very dense and hard and heavy. So that's the difference. Bison take almost twice as long to finish as beef do. So there's more time. It's slow food at its essence. But so nutritional value is greater in bison. The omega-3, omega-6 fatty acid profile is much more favorable in bison. Let's
talk about that ratio.
Stefan van Vliet. He's a professor and a scientist that just did the world's most thorough meat study to date, and he happened to do it on bison. And actually, one of our supply ranches was the host, or where the samples came from. But he just this last week we were in South Dakota at a meeting. He shared some of the results, and like 1.7, I believe, 1.7 to 1 is where the omega-3, omega-6 fatty acid ratio is in 100% grass-fed, regeneratively raised bison, which is phenomenal as compared to grass-fed beef, which is about a 4 to 1. So grass-fed beef is very favorable. Grass-fed bison is almost in the category of salmon, which is amazing. And lamb is another one and actually pasture-raised pork as well is another one that's really high in omega-3s. So
yeah, I know a lot of you guys were worried about where are we getting our omegas for if we're not eating fish, because I guess I'm a big fan of just limiting the fish because of the heavy metals and things like that. And we'll talk about too where you guys source your fish from as well. But so yeah, you get it in animal fats, the omegas, and like high amounts in bison. So that's super amazing. And yeah, so we have bison, which is how this relates to you. It's like we have, what did he find? 40,000 different micronutrients in bison. Like
micronutrients,
we don't even know about it, but it's so highly nutritious that I will definitely encourage you guys to switch up your meats too in variety, and don't just get ground beef for the sake of what you're consuming and nutrients and the health of human to feel really balanced and well-rounded nourishment, but also for the sake of the land and the environment and nose to tail, switch up your meats. If there are other ways to support our farmers, it's not just by okay, let me buy ground beef and ground beef and ground beef. It's about buying the offal and the bones, and then the different cuts, the elks, the lambs, which you guys all have, and you also have wild caught fish. And so what's really cool is that obviously they're very intentional about where they source their fish from. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that too?
Yeah. So the NorthStar standard, essentially is an umbrella that covers all species, and so all this applies to our fish. Obviously, our fish is not grass-fed, but
are you sure about that?
Yeah. It's as nature intended, as we like to say, as we've started to branch out of just specifically grazers or land mammals. But our fish is caught on really what do you want to say? Well, it's sustainable, but that's like a simple buzzword for us. But it's ethically and humanely harvested in Bristol Bay, Alaska. So it's a completely 100% wild fishery. There's no stocking, there's no fish farming. That's really, really important, because a lot of fish farming creates a lot of unnatural things in a natural environment. So farm salmon is not even close to the same thing as wild caught salmon. So all of our salmon is 100% wild caught, processed, filleted, and then frozen almost immediately before the end of the day. Every single day, that's their cycle, and that's really rare. So the quality of our salmon, like the eating experience, is greater than anything that we've experienced. We've eaten a lot of really good. We're passionate about all this kind of stuff, so we've eaten a lot of good food.
Yeah.
And our salmon, not just because it has, because we sell it, but that's the reason that we sell it, because it's phenomenal, and we have halibut as well, and we do have cod, which is slightly tougher. Wild cod is slightly tougher than traditional farm cod. Imagine that, but it's also healthier.
Yeah, and that's something that I love too, is like kind of what you said. It's it feels good to know that you're also supporting a farmer that would supply you with something that they encourage or they eat themselves too as well. So that's really important.
So the folks that fish it too are friends of ours, and it's just a husband, wife, and a couple friends that go up to Alaska and they fish, and it's a really small operation, but a lot of transparency, and we just that's the way we do every relationship.
No deep netting.
Right.
Yeah, and you can see all that too on their online store. Like if you wanted to, search for fish and get that infrequently throughout your month, you could do that. You could read up on them on all of the different farms, from your lambs to your elks to your chickens.
I'll say this too. Sorry to butt in here really quickly. Like just diversity, thinking about diversity. It's not my show. This is thinking about diversity on the land. Okay, so we want diverse species on the land, both in forage species as well as animal species. You want diversity. You want diversity in your diet. You want multi-species. You want diversity within the animal, right? So eating bones and fat. There's a plethora of really vital nutrients within an animal that come from various places in varying densities. So that's like diversity, just really pounding that into your head. Like you want a lot of different things from a lot of different places, and that will.
And just to reiterate too, it actually, alleviates some of the I guess the demand on the farm for one specific thing. And we also talked about, like, I understand, again, in an instantaneous world where it's like, I want ribeye today, or tomahawk, or beef, or this cut, and then it's unavailable online. That's a green flag, actually, that, they're doing the farming and the regenerative, way of living actually right, because, there's only so much that you can produce. And so just,
we're not supplementing with boxed
not
boxed meat.
supplementing, exactly. So not, so explore more of the variety of different cuts, nose to tail, and then also the different ruminants, as well as, the monogastric animals too. Very, very important. Another one of our questions too out there was, are your animals vaccinated?
As it relates to, this is a little bit of a complex question. Our breeding stock animals are 100% vaccinated for something called leptospirosis, and they get a 2cc dose, which is something that the deer carry. But the four meat animals do not. We had lots of questions about the Myrnavax thing that's going around, and that is something that we will never ever even entertain. So that's a scary thing, and not something that we would ever consider entertain.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead. Did you want to say more?
I might say in regards to the decision to do leptospirosis vaccine, it came as a point of kind of devastation for us early on in our business. We had the deer in our area carry lepto, and so we were given two choices. One is to give a 2cc to a pregnant cow. What happens is they abort at 8.5 months. So you have a wonderful, beautiful calf, and then literally at the final 2 to 4 weeks, the calf will pass away, and you have all these stillborn calves. Our option was to try to eradicate the deer and the wildlife in our area, which was a red flag for us. We're actually trying to encourage interaction, trying to fence in ways that encourage fowl and varmints, and just there's more than just livestock on the land. They are the starting of the nutrient cycle, but there's literally hundreds of species that follow these guys around. So we didn't want to start putting out toxic bait. I mean, we weren't going to go that route. And so we're still testing the process of being able to go away from lepto. But as of right now, this is the best management practice we can do, but it does not go into anything in the meat for market animals.
Yeah, and that's what I appreciate too, is just like the transparency and just like the choices along the way. Like anything else, you know, if you have a disease or a challenge or a medical condition that you're issuing, this isn't about, you know, what's right or what's wrong or something like that. You know yourself and you know your body. And what I want to encourage is more intuitive understanding of that and of eating, and that you are just at least intentional with your choices and you are conscious about what you are choosing. And so there's always a risk versus reward. Life is risk, you know, and there is reward. And so I will still always continue to support those who do continue to weigh those risks and rewards, you know, based on the ever-evolving, just, you know, way of nature, right? Get out of nature's way, see what's happening, and then make your decisions. And these are this is the support that I want to give to them too, because I support their decisions, weighing those risks and versus rewards, you know, from who produces my food. So 1,000% am all in. So with that being said too, we're going to wrap up here soon. And again, so if you guys have any questions, like start firing them away and we'll try to get to them as quick as possible. But the variety, like as we mentioned too, in the intuitive way of eating, we kind of like come together and we had a lot of discussion too about how we can, you know, sort of provide that and also just, you know, educate you. So not only do you guys have a wealth of information on your website with blogs and with, you know, certain ways like to get to know you guys better, but also we have created a fun bundle that is going to come out soon. We're not sure, but as everything, you know, even just again, like the intentions and the integrity and the value system that goes on the farm, which they are like all about the process, which sometimes for me, I'm just like, is it ready yet? Like the people want the bundle. But it will come out soon. And so the bundle will offer, you know, a good, healthy balance of what I think that, you know, would be a full balance and nourishing way to eat throughout the month. So I'm very excited to launch that with you guys soon. And so, yeah, so if you maybe wanted to chat a little bit about the importance of just kind of eating sort of like that whole nose to tail nourishment.
Exactly. Yeah, touching on the diversity aspect. So Lindsay is a great encourager of something, you know, that it's really easy. I'll say it this way. Like, we as humans have preferences, and we're very selfish in the way that we make decisions about what we eat. Is it tender enough? Does it taste good enough? And these are all very, what do you want to say, like first world decisions that we're making. And so just being aware of that, I think, is important, right? And obviously it needs to taste good. It needs to be palatable. But thinking about it from a perspective of much greater, much bigger than only those aspects. So yeah, eating diverse helps not only nutritionally. Like I said, there's, you know, different cuts have different nutritional profiles and different types of, you know, organs, bones, fats from different parts of the animals. It all varies. So it's important to eat diverse from an individual animal as well as diverse among species. That said, like, there's nothing more valuable if we want to talk about accelerating or growing, you know, the regenerative movement. Balance of carcass is something that we as stewards of this animal and what it yields and maximizing what it's giving, we're managing inventory all the time. If we're long on something, or if we have a lot of something and we're out of some other things that are really popular, we are not going to go harvest more animals just to sell a few more things that are popular and keep stockpiling the things that were long. We're going to be creative and try to find ways to help diversify and create things that are consumable that will help move the whole carcass through, the whole animal through at a balanced rate. So buying in that with that in mind is so important as a consumer. That helps this become a viable model for a lot more farms and ranches. And that's we're not selfish in this. We want to see, as we were driving around yesterday, I mentioned to Lindsay, I'm like, in my lifetime right now, it doesn't even cross my mind that I would drive past another regenerative farm in a very large radius around our home base here in northwestern Wisconsin. It just doesn't happen. I would love to see an old cornfield that's getting fenced, and it's not NorthStar supported, essentially.
Right.
That it's not us doing it, because that's all I've ever seen for my whole entire life.
Right.
In 29 years of doing this, I've never seen another piece of land be moved into this type of production model. I would love to see that change in my lifetime.
Right.
Doing that, it starts with consumption and conscious consumer choices, and buying things that are a little different, a little off, and things that are always in stock is probably a good indication of something that you should maybe incorporate. It's not in stock because it's bad. I mean, we're part of our responsibility is to be professional meat folks, and if prepared right, everything that we sell is phenomenal.
Right.
So consider that, I guess, and adding some of those things to your
cuts are
your
just
diet.
larger.
Right.
Yeah. Certain cuts are just a significant more higher portion of the animal.
Yeah, and to your point, the message is too, it's not even just about NorthStar here. It's just about farming and regenerative farming in general. And so if you do have a local farmer, ask these questions, talk with them, and because this is important, even when you do, purchase from somebody like White Oak Pastures and Churchill, who I equally love, you're still supporting this overall message, which still helps NorthStar, and which could still help your local farmer that is also practicing regenerative farming. And so I want to vote with my dollars, because as circling back to kind of what we said in the beginning, where it was like, hey, we're going to think about our future here. Everything is really about our future and what we're investing in our future. What I do today, isn't always necessarily to feel instantly like Superwoman, right? We talked about this. It's like, this is going to be the health of our planet, the health, and which is the part of the circle of life, which ipso facto, it's us, like our nutrition as well too, to live, to reclaim our health really, and vitality, and also reclaim the health of the soil. So just get out there, do your research, and you can also pop online too for NorthStar Bison. They've got these cool swag shirts that just came out that I'm wearing here. Oh, I think I had one other question. Oh yeah, one other question before I just want to tell you a little bit about these shirts and these hats, which are so fun and cute. They also have a little store in Wisconsin that I showed a little bit on my, or not yet, on Instagram, but it's to come. And so if you do swing by Wisconsin, you can get yourself like a just all this swag, but also online, but also pop in and get some meat, because they have all of their meats there. You can take a tour of the farm, which is super amazing. There's a tour going on right now. So you also want to look for farms that do that too, offer this sort of transparency and welcome it. So
it's built into our brand. We actually are basically have essentially labeled that aspect as our open gate certified, open gate policy, basically, that we are intentional about encouraging people to come here.
Yep.
Basically unannounced.
Exactly.
I mean,
So
we say unannounced as in you can stop in any time. It's just you may get a tour, you may not,
but
because
also
we're off checking herds and bailing hay. We have a lot of work to do, but so we're busy, so we want to be available to you. If you let us know that you're coming, we can plan, but nothing changes, right? We don't go hide the grain bin, we don't go anything like that. This is its ranch and its working clothes all the time.
So one last question, and I know she wanted to talk real quick. One last question, but I did want to mention something too. If you want a special discount, subscribe to my channel, because I'm going to release a special coupon for you guys for 24 hours from NorthStar Bison that you can purchase awesome meat from. And I think somebody asked, do you have a website on there? Yes, it's NorthStarBison.com. So they have a website, but also subscribe to my channel, because you will get a secret coupon code that will stay open or live for 24 hours. So then one other question, and then we can get to you and then wrap up.
The discount code is better than any other sale that we have throughout the whole entire year. So it's a good deal.
So one time only, you guys.
Yep.
The question from Instagram is, how do you kill your animals and do you drain the blood?
Sure,
Good
I
one.
can answer
That's
that.
a good one.
Okay.
I like that question.
So yeah, nobody wants to talk about that part,
End of life.
Sure.
the end of life. But we focus on that part a lot. One, for a couple reasons. Excuse me. Meat quality, meat tenderness, and humane harvest is a forefront of our focus all the time. So we have chosen with our non-amenable species, which is a really long word for wild game, so bison and elk, we have been able to pioneer a field harvesting process. As far as I know, we're the only field harvest elk facility in the U.S. And Canada as well. It took a lot of 2 years to get approved to do this because there was no rules about it. They just didn't know what to do with it. So, but we're committed. We're tenacious folks. So all of our bison and elk are field harvested. What that looks like is there's one bad moment. I don't even say one bad day. But is it really bad? The reason these animals have a purpose is to be consumed, to nourish you. If we don't have a consumer that's being nourished, we can't keep breeding these animals back. Things need to have consumable value. Cassette tapes don't have a lot of consumable value today. We don't want these animals. These animals almost went extinct once, right? So we feel like our role is to make sure we raise these animals in the way that you are best fed, and that will create the demand that allows us to continue to harvest more. So we love them. We're so grateful. We don't take any one of these for granted, but there is a purpose. There is an intent, which is to nourish people in a way that nothing else can or is readily available to them. So we're doing it different. It is slow meat, but there is a moment in which they're grazing. Sean and I have worked the slaughter floor for many, many, many years. And there's so many times I worked the front end, the opening end, and Sean was working the latter end of the floor. And every week I'm literally pulling grass out of their mouth because they were grazing when the lights went out. So we do use a gun.
That's a good sign.
We shoot them in the rear of the skull, which actually your absolute best shot is to hit the brain stem or the obex. What happens at that moment is the point of impact is an immediate blackout for the animal, and they're actually deceased before they hit the ground. And you can see how they land. And we are actually third-party audited in how this humane harvest happens. This isn't for, again, inviting criticism. Is this the best way that we could do this? This is a necessary process. We want to do it the best. So we have had third-party auditing in this and have been certified. The words were, could not imagine a better way. This is not a Wild West show. We take this very seriously.
Animal welfare approved.
Back to the question about, do you empty out the blood? Everything in processing and holding the food safety of this animal is about time and temperature. Everything. So we actually have inspection. It's called antemortem. The inspector has to see the animals harvested within an hour before harvest. They also monitor the entire process from out in the field where we're harvesting all the way through to the cooler. When an animal drops, okay, the trigger's pulled, the animal drops, hits the ground, they start a stopwatch. We have 3 minutes to bleed that animal out. We also, at that same point, have a maximum of 60 minutes to get this animal from the point of harvest all the way to completely skunned, completely rendered, split, chilled, and hanging and stamped. And everything has to pass inspection. You have a maximum of a 60-minute time lapse per animal. We're very fortunate to have learned how to do this and have a good system, and so we typically run about every 12 minutes from the time an animal is harvested until it's literally chilling in a cooler.
Right.
So it's kind of a process, but I want to be transparent about it. We have nothing to hide. It's very professional. It's also it's very stressful because there's a lot of pressure. not just from the inspection side, but from the side of just having dignity for the animal. We practice what we preach, and we take it very serious. So that is how our harvest happens.
Yeah, and you can just, from the energy to the conversations, you can, I can absolutely support and also confirm that is very true. I took we took a little journey through the processing facility yesterday, and just again, like, it's pristine, it's clean, absolutely. I will eat raw chicken from there. And yeah, so it's beautiful, and thank you so much for sharing. And yeah, so we're gonna wrap up, and I just wanted to see if there is any more questions, but thank you guys so much for joining. Once again, if you subscribe to my channel, you can get a one-time only discount for 24 hours. That is the heaviest discount, would you say?
Yeah.
Or the
best
the best discount in a year. So please hop onto my subscription channel, and you can get that code. And then also, again, they have a website. You guys can purchase direct to consumer online, and you can get some cool swag. Like, they're also coming out with like beef tallow soaps, right? Even though I just use water, I bought a soap because it was like, yes, I'll put this on my body. And so again, speaking of that, progressive mindset and thinking and always changing and evolving, and talking about new products that are coming out too. It's like tallow-based products, so it's like it's your one-stop shop, honestly. And yeah, and again, just to support this message and all over. So this has been one of the best trips ever, and yeah, I can continue talking to these guys, and we could stay on forever too. But thank you so much for having me, and this is what a beautiful
I'll say
farm.
this too, just to come off of what Lindsay's saying, because I think you can have a little bit of a what do you want to say, a pessimistic, or not a pessimistic, a critical standpoint of like, the one-stop shop thing. We don't want to own your life. We're just trying to serve, and every animal yields a lot, and we're trying to bring as much value to every single animal, and as much, and essentially that equates to dignity, right? So the more we use, the more creative we are with these products. Are extremely healthy for us.
Yeah.
So we're trying to be as the best stewards possible of the resources that we have, whether it's grass, animals, people. So.
And I think the support too that can be offered too is what you can do as a consumer is not only just, okay, like, I'm going to purchase their meat, but think outside the box, choose different cuts and from nose to tails, choose a variety of things. You can also get your soaps and things like that. You can also choose not to purchase from conventional farming, and there's a whole nother topic about that, and as far as like financially speaking, and that it's actually cheaper down the in the long term, in the long run, right? But stop buying from fast foods, please, or like just know where you're buying from, and it doesn't have to be everything flips upside down all at once, just like little things. So even if it's your soap, or even if it's just like just the liver, something. So I think that that's really important, that just making these baby steps and choosing intentionally will help us out tremendously. Every little thing counts. So again, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
NorthStar Bison, you guys.
Out
thank you. We hung out a lot longer because
that's to be expected.
these are basic. Yeah, I know. Thanks for joining. Bye.